Alexa. I'm head of community at Housecall Pro.
My name is Roland. I'm one of the co-founders of Housecall Pro.
We host the Pro Talks webcast series. You can think of it as a TED Talk for people of the trades and blue-collar workers.
So when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of information coming from the federal government, from the local governments, and we wanted to make sure that we could take that information, deconstruct it, make it simple and actionable for our home service professionals to be able to make sure that the money coming from the government would hit their banks so that they could stay open and ultimately growing.
So it started off as a response, has really turned into this amazing public service, and we've had the opportunity to have on so many incredible guests to our show.
We have hundreds of live viewers, and the recorded version gets viewed millions of times. Our audience consists of home service professionals and small business owners. Join us and make season 2 the best season yet.
Jordan, thank you for sitting down with Roland and I today. We're so excited to talk with you and learn more about your story and really have you share your experiences and what you've learned that our pros can take away and implement into their businesses. So why don't you start us out with just telling us about yourself and a bit about your journey and how you've got to where you are today.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to have me on your show. Where do I start? I was born in Iowa, small town, about 3,000 people. My grandfather, he was the one who started in the plumbing industry. Taught my dad, taught my uncles at a very young age, had them working, doing miscellaneous things around the shop. I started as a young kid going to the shop and, learning from them and doing some of the things that they did at young ages, at a very, very young age, that most little kids probably shouldn't have been doing. Working with torches and, working with cutting tools and stuff, because my grandfather was also a master HVAC specialist. And so he cut his own ductwork, riveted. I learned how to rivet ductwork, learned so many things at a young age. And the biggest thing that I took away as I continued into my young adulthood was just the work ethic, the dedication. It took a hold of me at a young age, carried through into sports, into everything I did. I always wanted to be the best. And I think it stemmed from the hard work ethic. And so that was instilled in me at a young age. And it wasn't necessarily that, I was so attracted to being into the plumbing HVAC industry. It was just that the admiring of your father, your grandfather, your uncles, the people that you look up to closely, and seeing, the things that they're doing for their families, the sacrifices that they're making, the amount of time and effort they're putting in to perfect their craft. It was an amazing thing to truly see. And I felt very blessed at a young age to get an opportunity to actually see that and have it be part of, sorry, that's my wife giving me a piece of gum here. Seeing, that evolve into eventually a company that grew into Arizona. I watched my family's company just be a little small mom and pop shop. And, like I said, a town of 3,000, maybe 4,000 people, Humble, Iowa. And it grew to a place where my family eventually employed almost 600 people. And wow. It was pretty cool to see that. That taught me a whole different set of lessons about work ethic and growth and mentality and being able to manage that type of workforce, which obviously Roland can speak for. Presents its own set of challenges, aside of what you have to go through mentally on an individual basis. Now you're responsible for what almost 600 people go through mentally on a daily basis in their personal lives and also in their work lives. And so balancing that and doing that, I got to see it firsthand. So I really honestly say that the opportunity that I had to be able to sit back and see that from a young age, moving into young adulthood, into, having my own children and going out and starting my own business, I couldn't have had it any better, honestly. A lot of hard work, and they definitely didn't pay me well, but, the value that I got from it was, irreplaceable. and learned so much about not just business, but life. And so,
So Jordan, we know this from talking with you before. Being a plumber wasn't, and owning a plumbing business wasn't your first choice. So
yeah.
how did you get, so obviously you grew up in your family business and you took a bit of a break from it to do something that you're really passionate about and then ended back up in the plumbing industry. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, and the thing that you went to, like, what did you take from it back into where you are now? Like, what did you learn from that specific piece?
Oh yeah. So, like I said, earlier as we were talking here, I didn't fall in love with the plumbing HVAC industry, and I wasn't like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. And I think a lot of young kids, they look for the things that they really have fun in. And I think that as translating to adulthood, that's the thing we always chase, right? You hear so many people like, I wish I could do what I love to do. And a lot of people don't ever get that opportunity, and maybe because they don't want to take the risk or whatever it may be. But I did have an opportunity to do exactly what I love to do, which was play football. And I worked very hard at it. And again, took that same type of work ethic that I got to visualize at a young age and carried that through to something that I was passionate about and I had fun doing. And ultimately that career fizzled out at a point of, getting into the NFL and being able to take that career, and that career path and do what I loved to do, and played for 17 years at a high level. And once that took place, it was one of those moments where I couldn't have envisioned myself doing anything but playing football. And so once that came to a point where that dream fizzled out and was no longer going to come true, it did put me in a place of where I had to reset and almost into a depressive state of mind of confusion, not knowing what to do. You're a young adult, you expected to be extremely successful. There was people expecting you to do the things that you expected to do. You manifested these things for so many years, playing sports at a high level, a lot of accolades at the collegiate level, things like that.
Get some family members too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, my cousin, he played in the MLB for 15 seasons. I have cousins that played in the NFL, very high level. Did some, one relative played in 6 Super Bowls. So, a lot of high hopes and expectations. And when you have those things in life where you create this expectation, your perception is your reality. And when you're expecting to do certain things and that doesn't happen, it does take a little bit of toll on you mentally. But it's a good testament. I think a lot of people go through their own journeys to finally get to where they are, whether it be what they love to do or what they have to do. But ultimately, it's through some form of sacrifices and pain points. And we learn so much from the obstacles we go through and the mistakes we make and the difficulties we go through in life to ultimately place us in a place where hopefully that opportunity that's now presented with us is where we can thrive and do well for ourselves and our family and friends. So yeah, that definitely took a toll on me at a young age. And especially, when you're young, you're always trying to figure out what you want to do anyways, right? So when your dream goes to the wayside, it's like, okay, what do I do now? Well, my dad had the answer. He said, go to work. So I said, well, I have been working. I've been training, playing football. I literally was not drinking any alcohol ever. I was never going out. I was disciplined. I was going to bed early. I was eating right. I was doing everything that it took. And so now, hey, you got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're not gonna go run around and get in shape. You're gonna go and strap on a uniform, and you're gonna wake up and be ready to work immediately. You're gonna have a coffee, probably not eat too much, and get right after it. And I didn't really know what that meant, right? I had just always been a little kid watching my grandfather do things, watch my dad do things. Never really had to physically do the type of work that they were doing. So this was a rude awakening. And it started in new construction. And new construction it's a very disciplined type of work. And it also requires you to, especially in Arizona, you got to put in early hours because you can't be out in the sun at 3, 4, or 5 in the afternoon in the summertime. So you got to get a lot accomplished between, 4 or 5 in the morning as the sun's just starting to come up and probably 1 or 2. So it's a very aggressive state of mind. And I did acclimate well because it kind of fit to the athlete mentality of, the disciplines and creating the structure and having consistency. But the pay was not good. And it definitely didn't allow me to feel like this was going to be my future. So at that point in time, it was definitely a job. And it definitely felt at a point where coming out of something that you love to do is very difficult to go to work every day and wake up and try to think about, okay, I didn't make it in football. What am I really trying to do here? Am I just working to make a paycheck? Where am I going to end up? What am I going to be doing? So 4 years into that, still haven't got a pay increase. So the pay wasn't good. And ultimately I started to question what I was really doing. What did I want to do? What were my life goals? They had to be adjusted. I had to go about it differently. I had to think differently than what I was at that current moment, because that moment was not a healthy place for me. It was a moment where I was questioning everything, how wasn't I good enough to make the NFL? How didn't I get an opportunity to make it to the NFL? I worked out for NFL teams, and what went wrong? So I went back and just tried reflecting on that. Ultimately came to a point where I was like, you know what? I have to move on from this. I have to mentally regroup from this. I have to completely move my mind and my mindset into a different direction. And your mindset is honestly, it is so powerful. It is something that I teach my employees now about how crucial your mindset is, and that if you don't have your mindset right for what you want to accomplish and the goals that you set out to do, you are always going to start off in the most difficult position. If you have a strong mindset, you can literally work through almost anything on a regular basis. And even if you can at that moment, it's going to lead you down the path where you are eventually able to work through it. It carries.
What kind of example, Jordan? So I think a lot of people hear this are like, I think I've got the right mindset, but what's an example, and how do you train your employees to have that mindset?
So just like anything, practice makes perfect. I know it's so cliche, but it's really the truth. And We're humans. Everything we do is based off of habits. And so we have to control the habits that go through our mind and the decisions that we make. And that's going to allow us to be able to create the mindset that we need to have to do the things that we want to do. And, some people are like, oh yeah, the psychology of it and this, that, and the other, it's so deep, it's not, you don't have to take it there. But I'll disagree, and I'll go to war with that statement that with any entrepreneur or anybody who's successful at whatever it is, it doesn't have to be in a monetary value-based business or job. Just anybody, whoever considers themselves the most successful people, you'll find a commonality that they are strong mentally. And they don't get there overnight. They've went through so many ups and downs to get to that point. And that's relating back to the story of where I was in question of my mental state. I mean, not to sound crazy, but literally you're questioning, a lot of things about yourself. And I think that there's a turning point for every single person in life. Sometimes when you're younger, you make mistakes, you do bad things or whatever, but if you learn from them and you adjust and you have personal growth and you reflect, you can get your mindset to go wherever you want. And that's exactly what needed to take place for me at that moment. And I had a really deep, profound reflection, talked to people that I loved and cared about close to me. And they said, listen, this is a great opportunity for you to truly understand yourself first and foremost before anybody else. Because you can never help anybody else do anything else until you know exactly who you are. And you have to have a true understanding of who you are. And there's a lot of honesty that has to take place within to truly understand who you are and understand your shortcomings and your strengths, obviously. and understand where you need to improve to be able to have the proper mindset to move forward first and foremost, but then also to be able to help other people and impact other people. So I decided my number one strongest characteristic at that point in time, and what was going to eventually help me in my mental growth, was I love to help people. I love to see people succeed. I love to be part of their journey. And so that was the thing that I was going to carry me through my weak points and through my down slope. And so at that point in time, I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help people. And along that journey, I had met some people that said, man, you're a bright young man, and you have a lot of potential. And I'm like, yeah, well, potential is great, but kinetics better, action. I want to, let's put it into play. So I wanted to test myself. And so I went to work for one of the largest contractors in the United States, American Residential Services. And I worked my way up to become the top salesman in that entire company.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So when you pivoted, you really had it within yourself. You had the humility to go, okay, you know what, maybe NFL isn't for me, but I'm going to take like a positive step forward and go find something else. So I feel like that was like a big turn point. But then you find yourself at ARS, huge company. What made you figure out that sales was something that you were good at? Because I feel like everybody's good at different aspects. Some people are good at operations. Some people are better at numbers. Some people are better at sales. Like, how did you identify that within yourself? And then how did you just become a better salesperson without, going through all the standard books and things that you read? Like, how did you get there?
Yeah. So, it's pretty crazy because I never knew that I wanted to do anything with sales. And I don't even like to call it sales. I'd love to call it something different. I don't know, it's
helping people, just helping people with problems.
It's problem solvers, right? And the thing is that the thing that really intrigued me the most about it was everything that related to football. The camaraderie of a team, the discipline, the goal achieving, the pushing, the constant pushing for elevating your game, for always trying to make adaptations and find ways to be able to create a better edge against competition. So many different things that cause those fiery, things to go off in my belly again, where I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels like real similar. And so I acclimated very quickly to it. And I was always pretty comfortable with, doing self-reflection and understanding my weaknesses and understanding that, for me to help and continue to get people to improve on, on my team, I have to be able to improve myself and showcase that. That was part of leadership. And I wasn't a leader at the time. I just was fun. And so maybe guys would, acclimate to me and want to work with me because I had fun and I enjoyed work and maybe made it a little bit more exciting to come to work every day, because sometimes a job's a job and we don't always have fun. So I think I did create that environment, but then it was, okay, I want more than just to be fun and exciting and growing and doing special things and relationship building and sales, but I want to be a leader. How do I do that? And so that's where I really set off, on a different journey, to not change my life, but to help others change their lives first. And when I started to truly not focus on what I need to do monetarily for myself and separated money from the equation.
I think you're talking about, you are on this big team now and you're not necessarily like the official leader, but you're the fun one and you're the one that gets everyone excited. And that's a natural leadership quality. And I think a lot of our pros can relate to that. And this is a part of their journey too. Like, when do you figure out, okay, it's now time to become a leader, and how do I do that? So, what steps did you take to become a leader in your company?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
So we were just talking about
just the last thing you said. I heard everything up to that point.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Like, how did you make that transition from team member to leader?
Um, well, it was definitely based off of everything that I had learned up to that point in my life, through all the growth that I went through from sports to having relationships, between your family members, your friends, girlfriends, all these different things. You learn off of your mistakes. You learn off of all the things that you didn't do right. And those are opportunities on a daily basis to reflect on them, or just go by the wayside and act like they didn't happen. So you always have a choice in all decisions that are made to look back on them and say, did I make the right decision? Am I making the right decisions to continue leading me in the right direction where I want to go? Are they aligning with my goals? And so I think that you always have to keep yourself pushing the bar or through the glass door on that level to start breaking into new levels. And I just felt like I was constantly doing that on a regular basis, where eventually you just become the leader. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's something that takes time, but it's that constant where, it's almost like it's the opposition and you're trying to close down that territory. You're trying to get better. You're trying to, have more influence on your employees or your team. You're trying to accomplish more as a team. You're trying to maximize individuals' goals, maximize team efforts, all these different things, right? And there's so many things working in so many different directions that you can't just focus on one thing. You have to be able to be multitask oriented. And to be able to do that, it takes time. And there's a lot of mistakes that are made. And I like I was talking to Roland and you the other day when we were having a discussion, it's like Michael Jordan said, he missed, I don't even remember the exact number. I'll throw out a number. It was something crazy,
yeah,
tons of free throws or tons of shots in practice to hit the game-winning shot. And that's life. I mean, it really is, and it translates to everything that you do, especially when there's multiple people or an organization involved. And so it's that constant wear of constantly trying to improve and reflection and growing and honestly getting good feedback from your peers and making adjustments. And your peers can be your customers, your peers can be your employees, and listening to the things they say, even when they're painful, even when they're like totally against what you're thinking in your mind. And where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And understanding that our perceptions aren't the right way. They're just the way we know of. And so there's so many other perspectives that you have to understand. And that's why I always say, hey, put yourself in other people's shoes. Well, yeah, because it allows you to have different viewpoints to make you a stronger leader and have more influence. I just had a meeting with my employees this morning about this. And I told them, you're a leader when the people that are following you is continually growing. And you're influencing more and more people. As you guys have continued to do. I mean, just look back at your guys' company and organization, where you started and not that long ago, and where it's grown to in this short amount of time, and how unbelievable the journey is up to this point. It's just unbelievable. But you can say when you first started, the type of leader you were there versus the leader you are now, whole different ballgame. And you don't get there without making that constant failure but fighting back against it, and not letting it win and succumbing to it. And when chips are down, especially now, I mean, all the stuff that's going on in the world, especially as an entrepreneur, so easy to put all the chips stacked up against you. But what better to go and fight every day for that thing that you want to get better at, and that thing that you've always fought for, and fight through and win through, especially the most trying times.
Jordan,
go ahead.
That feedback piece is so important. And it's like probably the hardest piece about being a boss, about being in charge of people. What has been the most painful but accurate piece of feedback that you've gotten that you've had to actively work on since having a company?
Honestly, it's managing people. It's understanding that they don't just have differences in opinions on a daily basis. I'm just going to walk around because I got to get my computer on the charger here, but it's more than just managing people. But that is the most difficult thing, is understanding that those people all came from different walks of life. They all came up different. They all had different ways of learning through their parents, through their leaders, through their mentors, through everybody that's influenced them in their life. And so you have to truly get to know those people that are out sacrificing and doing the same things that you may have once done for an employer. And so once you've made those adjustments, and you understand things differently with your employees than just the fact that they're out making a paycheck and working for you, but yet they're a person that you should care about, that you should love, that you should want to see their families do well and do amazing things. That's when you can really propel yourself to the next level, because there's not a better investment than in people. And when you truly care about your employees and you invest the time and the effort that they deserve, it's amazing what happens.
So one thing you had briefly mentioned before is like, you don't really even like the term selling. You really like more even the term of like solving a problem for someone, but also tying in some sort of emotion. So tell us a little bit about, for people that sometimes struggle with sales or feel like they could improve on it, what are things that you do to train your employees on selling emotionally, and like, what is it? How do you distill it?
Again, touching back on some of the things that we've already talked about, it first and foremost, what we teach is mindset, right? Because when you're going and you're communicating with people, there's nothing better than somebody coming in to a conversation or into a setting with a smile on their face, happy, excited to be there. It makes other people who are around much more comfortable. It makes the whole communication process go much smoother. It makes everything start off the way that it should in a communication setting. And so that's the first and foremost. And I hate to keep repeating it, but it's just so important to start off with a strong mindset and make sure that that's first and foremost, most consistent thing that happens on a daily basis. And to obtain a strong mindset and to maintain a strong mindset, it has to be reflected on daily, and has to be talked about and reflected upon almost minute by minute, on decisions that are made. And it's that constant reflection of holding yourself accountable, being responsible for all the decisions and actions that you make and living with some of them. And then building upon that. Okay. So mindset, consistency in everything that you do, and then communication. Communication is the key to opening the door for a relationship. The relationship sits on the other side of the door, and people, they want to trust people when they come into their homes, especially,
Mm-hmm.
And it's so difficult. We've heard so many stories, for so many years across the board, of, situations happening where those relationships were taken advantage of. And so the communication aspect is so important, to open that door of communication to a further point of relationships.
How do you do that, like tactically? So let's say you walk in the door. What are some things that you say? What are some things how you start building that relationship to get people comfortable with you kind of entering the home? So I think that really sets the stage for everything else that you do going forward.
100%. Your presence as a professional is the first and foremost thing, because unfortunately, us as humans, we judge, right? We're guilty of it. All of us are. And so the best way to start off, your mindset's right? You show up, you're happy, you're excited, you're ready to take care of somebody, you're ready to help them. So you hop out that truck, and trust me, those people are watching you from an immediate basis. They watched you pull up. And if you are on the phone and you're sitting in your truck and you're lollygagging, and then you hop out, your shirt's untucked, your hat's maybe tilted up or backwards, you're in disarray, you're being judged. If you hop out excited, smile on the face, You know, you don't pull in somebody's driveway. You park outside in the street, respecting their property in case, you know, you're leaking oil or something in your vehicle. And you acknowledge that, hey, I just parked in the street because, you know, I don't want anything to happen on your property. We take care of everything. I'm going to wear booties when we come into your house to protect your floors, because we you know, our boots are going everywhere. They're going in grass. They're going where dogs, you know, animals, you know, take care of themselves in the yard.
Business.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we're also around a lot of human stuff too. So, you know, we want to be clean, especially nowadays, you know, with everything that's going on in the world, cleanliness and making sure that people's properties are protected and making them feel safe and comfortable is more important than it's ever been, right? Hygiene. So we want our guys to look professional. And so it's, you know, practice makes perfect. So making sure that these guys are showing up and looking the part. And then when they are entering the homes, being graceful, you know, using your manners that your parents taught you, you know, and that they harped on when you were a little kid, and, you know, you asked for something and didn't say please, and all those things, right? And just being respectful of people and their space, and that the fact that they're calling us for our knowledge, for our services, and in turn we're providing them value back and trust that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And so genuine conversation, it can be sought out so quickly, and especially nowadays, consumers are so much more educated than they've ever been. They have access to everything online now. They've been ran through, you know, by so many contractors that tried running game on them, and so many things, that these customers are savvy nowadays. And so being disingenuine, it's sought out. And, you know, I believe it's Gary Vee has said, you know, like, I know some of the online review portals, you know, there's shortcomings to everything, right? And you can talk about Yelp and Google and this and that. But at the end of the day, it also reveals a lot about the company and the character of the company as well. And so if you're not doing the right thing and you're disingenuine, it's going to show up online, you know, because maybe you fool some people, but if you plan on being a successful company and successful at whatever you do, it doesn't matter if you're an employee and you want to be successful within the organization. If you're not doing the right thing, you may pull the wool over on some, but you're not going to be successful at a high level when you are constantly in front of people. And if you're disingenuine, it'll be sought out. And so that is the good thing about the online platforms, is it keeps people honest nowadays and makes sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, we tell a lot of people that's the easiest thing you can be doing for your business. After every single job, ask for a review. And if you're doing good work, that good work is going to surface to the front of Google, the front of Yelp, the front of wherever people are looking for you. And if you're not asking, then you're going to fall behind the people that are. So make sure you have got some automated way to do it. But the only way to get the good reviews is to do the good work. And if at any point you feel like you're not doing right by the customer, there's a chance that's going to show up online, and it's going to make it really hard to recover from things like that. Because I know, you know, when my girlfriend's looking online, you know, they're not just looking at the good reviews. They just go like sort by the worst. And then they're looking at like what, you know, sort by the worst. I'm just going to read the worst reviews just to make sure like what's going on. And I think there's two things she looks for. One is like, what's the response? So is there a response? And if so, like, what is the response? And two, like, is it the crazy cat lady or the crazy cat man, you know, that's just like way wackadoodle. And you know, for sure that like no one was going to make that customer happy. 100%. You know, as long as those two things are there, then pretty much you can disregard it. But if not, then it becomes really kind of that red flag. They might not even pick you because of it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you hit all of the bullet points there. I mean, you couldn't have been more spot on. If you're afraid to ask for a review, there's a problem there that you probably should look a little bit deeper into, you know. And there's those companies out there, like they're not asking for reviews because they, you know, when they reflect upon themselves, they know that they weren't doing the right thing, and the customers were probably going to write things that they didn't want to see online. So yeah, there's definitely those customers out there as well that you just can unfortunately never make happy. But again, going back to what we talked about just 5 minutes ago, consistency overweighs everything. And so if you're consistently always doing the right thing, always showing up with a positive attitude, always building strong relationships. The small amount of people that are bad out there and the small amount of people that just have deep-rooted issues that there's nothing we can fix or even psychologists can fix, that's out of our control. Our jobs as professionals is to provide the highest level of service. As I tell my employees, keep it presidential. Don't fall into the wayside because somebody else is trying to drag you through their dirty trenches. We still got to hold ourselves to the highest standard. We still got to perform. I mean, there's contractors that are going to vouch for this. The customers that cuss at you and, even when providing prices and being respectful, because contractors will also relate to this, that a lot of customers have a misunderstanding of the value that us as contractors provide. And we're finding out how valuable we truly are as essential workers when all this stuff is going on and people need us so dearly when they're spending all this time at home. So, when you get the customers who complain about the prices and stuff like that, the value that we provide exponentially, outweighs the cost that customers pay for our services when you have the right contractor at your home doing the work that we do.
Yeah,
Jordan?
I feel like most bad situations come from where there's like just a mismatch in expectations, and that value is just a big part of them. Yeah.
So spot on.
I say, Jordan, how many employees do you have now?
Currently right now we have 89.
You have 89 employees. And so from hearing you speak over the last few minutes about how you show up to go sell and how you expect your employees to show up when they arrive at a job, what systems do you have in place for performance reviews like that for your employees to make sure that they are showing up and their uniform is on right, they're not parking in the driveway, and that they're and they're not being disingenuous to the customer? What do you do to make sure that they are showing up the same way every time?
Okay. Great question. So we have meetings twice a week. Some companies have them every day. And I think that can be, especially the amount of sacrifice and time that we make as contractors away from our families and loved ones. I only want to have meetings twice a week because I feel like that's already taken away, but you have to have structure and you have to have organization. And so those two meetings, there's certain points that we hit on every single week. It's just like with anything, right? Going back again to consistency. If we are consistently practicing the things that we want to do effectively and correct out there in the public for our consumers at a high level, at a level that we believe most people can't reach, we have to practice those things and we have to reiterate them on a regular basis because unfortunately, again, we're humans of habit. And it's very easy if you don't stay on top of those, even if you are performing at the highest elite level, to fall back into some bad habits. And then you have to start back to your base again and go back to the basics and build back from your foundation. And instead of doing that, it's better just to stay on top of it. As I tell my employees, I don't want to go through tidal waves. I want to go through speed bumps. And the way to manage and go through speed bumps is to stay on top of the stuff as it's actively happening. And even though we're a 5-star company across the board for all the social platforms, that's a job in itself. And we still get bad reviews every once in a while, but the key ingredient to dealing with those is being responsive immediately. Not letting even hours go by, not letting days go by, not letting weeks, but dealing with it within minutes. And it blows clients away. And that is so important. And once your technicians see that that's how important your reputation is, it creates a culture within that nobody wants to be that person that gets that bad review. And so they're doing everything in their power. And I mean, I can't tell you the overwhelmingly amounts of not even stuff that even makes it to the social platforms, because some people don't know how to use that stuff. Some of the older generations, but they write emails. They send letters in the mail. And we get so much amazing feedback from our consumers as far as how our professionals are carrying themselves in consumers' homes. And so we create incentive for those employees to continue that because there should be reward. Sometimes we'll do a competition on a monthly basis where we'll do a 1 or 2 day staycation. Like my California employees will do like Palm Springs or Laguna, in Phoenix, maybe we'll do Sedona, and we'll do a staycation for them. And it's going to cost me a lot more money than than the reviews are providing me, right? But the reputation that is creating for us when these technicians are going out and providing the highest level of service, it's way more important than money. And that's what translate obviously into revenue down the road also. So it's not that it doesn't create more revenue. It's just that there's nothing more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's nothing more satisfying and gratifying than building a legacy and doing something more important as a team than any individual could possibly do by themselves. And so when you get all the people moving in one, locomotive motion, it's amazing and it's unbelievable what you can do. I mean, there's no way in 2.5 years I could have grown to 89 employees doing $20+ million in revenue all by myself, even being, very good at building relationships. This was done because a large group of guys bought into doing the right thing for clients and coming together with a vision that we wanted to create a new way of doing things.
Yep. And what gets rewarded and repeated, or rewarded and acknowledged, gets repeated. Yeah. And that's good that you're doing that. It's a good tip.
I really like how focused you are on the reputation of your company and the incentives that you provide, because, and I'm sure all of the pros listening, the trades has a bad rap. Like people are always trying to get one over on them. You're late, like you show up just disheveled. And if it's companies like yours and companies like our pros listening, that if you are actively trying to show up a certain way, both to your employees, they'll show up that way for you, and not just build a better brand for your company, but for that entire industry in general. So I think that is so important that you're doing that with your employees.
Thank you. As well as are you guys. What a brand you guys have created, man.
We hope so.
Trendsetters. Love it.
So Jordan, as you're on this way to creating this incredible legacy for yourself and for your family, and which I think is really the ultimate goal for why anyone starts a home service business. It's not easy to be successful, but once you get a taste of that, it's really limitless. As you said before, you've really just come to find out how essential you are and like how needed you are. So what metrics do you measure yourself against to make sure that you are growing every single month? What are your main metrics that you look at with your team?
So on an overall team basis level, we're looking at first and foremost how many clients we serviced. Okay. Most people would say the first answer is revenue, right? And revenue is obviously important because it allows you to grow, allows you to be able to buy trucks for more employees, allows you to continue to buy the equipment you need to further do jobs more effectively. But the key ingredient is how many customers did you serve? So that's our first and foremost focus, is how efficient can we be at answering the phones? And customer service level has to be high level starting at that point first and foremost. Because the experience that a customer has from the beginning is going to set the tone for everything else from that point on. If you have a terrible experience on the phone, even if you have this amazing technician, it's going to bring that little tachometer up to a point where the customer had an all right experience, right? They loved the tech, but starting off, it rubbed them a little the wrong way. Imagine if you had an experience where the person that answers the phone is so happy and elated to have a job and to be working somewhere and be excited to be there, that it makes you feel happy even if you're in a bad mood. And all of us can relate to that. When we've called companies like, wow, that person was very, very chipper. They were very happy, and it makes you like just a little bit naturally happier even if you're having a bad day. And that's just how us as humans rub off on each other in a bad or good way. And so we focus on that metric first. How many customers did we capture, and how do you capture customers effectively? Well, you got to answer the phone quickly, and you got to be effective when you talk to those customers and make them excited that you're the pro that's going to come to their house. they got to be excited to see you. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to see who this guy is. And so measuring that, so how the phone's answered, capturing those calls, the opportunities that your marketing dollars are paying forward, and then the communication efforts that start immediately from the tech basis. So, you know, we're setting the precedence with the customer service from the call center to then going to the technician who's reaching out to the customer and notifying him that he's a technician through Housecall Pro. It's going right over to the customer's cell phone or email. And then we reach out and call them. We want them to hear us. And our techs call happy and excited to be there. They let them know who it is. And it makes people feel safe too. They know what to expect. They're looking for a bright blue wrap truck with a superhero on the side with a yellow cape and, you know, a bright and shiny gentleman hopping out with a smile on his face and ready to get to work and help them, you know, and dressed like a professional. And, you know, that sets the pace. And so we measure that first. And by measuring that, I say we are constantly reflecting, as I've done my entire career to get to where I am, on a regular basis on where we can get better, setting goals, individual and team goals, short-term, immediate, and long-term goals, and then measuring those, seeing where we fall into place. We always want to shoot them so far out of reach where they seem unfathomable to even obtain. But then when guys hit them, they realize that they can set new goals that are even crazier. And so we're constantly pushing ourselves in our communication efforts, and we role play a lot. And when you role play with your peers, boy, that gives you, it's the most nerve-wracking you can possibly be, because
it feels a little awkward sometimes, you know?
Yeah,
you're like, am I going to pretend to be the homeowner and you're going to be the tech, or is it going to be switched?
Yeah. And your peers are so critical of you. They don't hold back. They are not holding back on you. They're hitting you with low blows, everything they possibly hit you with. So you got to bring your A game, and especially as you up the ante and your team becomes very, very top notch. The bar continually gets pushed, and so you're seeing jockeying on a regular basis, that competition that we love and thrive in. As entrepreneurs, as competitive natured people who are out in the field servicing people, you know, and it's friendly and it's rewarding, because we get to see exactly where our weaknesses are and how strong other people are in some areas and how strong we are in some areas. And so that's how we measure that on a not only customer service level, but also on how we're communicating to all levels, you know, between just period. Because I teach my guys, listen, there's no switch you can turn off and on where you're like, you're a strong communicator. You got to communicate well to your wife, your girlfriend, or, you know, your significant other, whatever it is. And you got to communicate well to your kids. If you have kids, you got to communicate well to your neighbors. You got to communicate well to the people that you're buying stuff from. If you do that on a regular basis and communicate well in everything you do, it's going to translate immediately to work. And so that's the things that we're constantly trying to do, is there's no off and on switches. If you're being genuine and you're constantly trying to have personal growth in your life as a professional or as an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you are doing, there's no off and on switch. This has to become part of who you are, the lifestyle that you want to live and the lead you want to take. And so that's how we measure that. And then it translates to revenue. Then it translates to dollars. Then you can see directly, wow, because monetary has to be secondary. It has to be. If it is the sole focus of you individually or as an organization, your decisions are going to solely be based on money-based decisions and not based off of what you need to do to grow as a person, as a father, as a husband, as an entrepreneur, as an employee. And if you focus on those things and how to help people first, it comes back tenfold. It comes back tenfold. That is
I feel like that's a golden nugget. Like it's almost like it's almost non-intuitive. You know, you see a lot of businesses that are just like, what's your goal for revenue this year? You know, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million. But when you talk that way, there's a lot of ways to actually achieve that revenue. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily even profitable. Because you could run tons of unprofitable stuff and make huge revenue with gross margins that are just terrible.
Yeah.
There's lots of shortcuts. Obviously, there's a lot of contractors that have unfortunately kind of gone that bad rap, to just drive soilless metrics. But what was interesting when we asked you the question, what's the main metric that you measure? It's just happy customers. That's just what we measure. How many happy customers? And then all the rest kind of stems from there, and it kind of grows. And I feel like adopting that kind of a mindset will naturally correct and set your business on that right path for things that will scale a lot longer than just kind of these short-term goals. Alexi, you have some questions around goals.
Yeah. So
Can I just add one thing to that real quick? I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to add a little golden nugget to that. You said a key ingredient there. The key ingredient to what you just said, Roland, is sustainability. Sustainability. To sustain things, you have to be credible. To sustain things, there has to be that consistency in what you do. Have all the things that you just talked about. And to do that, if it's solely based off of monetary value, you can't create sustainability because your employees don't care about your business. They don't care about the brand, and they care about solely what they can get from you. And once you create that culture, you ultimately get tied up in the same thing. So then now you only care about what they bring to you. And so it's just exchange that doesn't create loyalty. It creates high turnover, and it's not putting out the product that you should want as your brand. And so I want brand employees. I want brand employees who are focused on not what they're going to do this week and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong. It's so easy when you got bills up and let's say you're living week to week and you got to make a certain amount of money. It's so difficult to not focus on money, but that if you can wrap your head around it, and I've trained so many guys, and I'm going to touch on something real quick before we go to the next topic. I've had so many employees and guys I've mentored as an employee and as an employer. And that is the main focus that I see in our industry is guys, there's a lot of guys who make a lot of money, but they're living week to week and it's forcing them to only focus on the monetary value. Once I get them to change their mindset and reorientate their values, the money no longer is in the picture, and it's most difficult when you need it the most. And so when you get somebody in that vulnerable state and you can break them down and then rebuild them back up again, it's a transformation that is unbelievable, and it's so rewarding to see as a leader to be able to see that transformation. And that's where I love to thrive. I actually had he's probably one of your pros, very successful guy, actually only in HVAC, not in plumbing. He reached out to me on Facebook. And he said, Jordan, it's like, man, I've heard so much about you and I don't know, what do you do? What do you, like, just tell me, like, how do you talk to your employees? Like, what do you do? And so we had this, my wife's like, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. She's like, why is your phone still going up, And we're just going back and forth, boom, 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 boom. And we're just he's throwing gold nuggets at me. I'm throwing gold nuggets at him. And we were just providing value to each other. And it was awesome. But at the end of the day, he called me a week later and he's like, man, you don't even know the transformation that just happened in my company. And I was like, wow, what happened? Talk to me. He's like, I totally changed the whole message when I came into the office to my employees. And he's like, I adopted some of what you talked about, your mentality of separating the money out of it and that becoming the secondary part of goals and focus on the individual and the personal growth and how we can become better communicators, how I can become a better boss. What do you need from me? I work for you, the employees. How can I become a better boss to you? How can I become a better leader? And he did those things. And he said his company literally in 1 week, the transformation, he's like, it was like a new company. And I talked to him literally the other day and he's like, my revenue skyrocketed. And he's like, I've been stuck at a plateau for almost 2 years. And he's like, I couldn't figure it out. And he's like, literally changing that one small thing, but important thing of caring about your employees, being genuine. So that way because people mirror and want to do things that leaders that they look up to do. So if you're reflecting that you care about them and you love them and you want to do well for them and you want them to make the most amount of money and help their families change their lives, they go do the same thing for you with your customers. Yep. And so sorry to, I didn't want to ramble on, but I just wanted to add that in there because I felt that was so important as we closed up that part of the segment.
Totally. No, I think that's the most valuable piece of information that you've given us. And I mean, that's why this whole interview, it's about having an athlete's mindset in your business. Money comes second. The famous athletes, professional athletes, they're doing it for the love of the game. They're not doing it for the money, even though the money's great. It comes secondary. And when you have
Fitzgerald.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
Fact. It just paints the picture right there for you.
Exactly. And so you can apply that at your level and whatever. I think, Jordan, you said, choose whatever arena you're going to be in and like be the best at it. And don't put money first, because no matter what, you will fail if that is your only goal in having this business and making it be successful. So that was truly the most important piece for me of this. We have a few more questions for you. One, going back to, you're saying you set short-term and long-term goals for your techs. And that's some of the metrics that you meet. What are some examples of short-term and long-term goals that you set with your techs to meet?
So I don't set their goals for them. And so what we do is we go through our morning meeting and I hand out a blank sheet of paper and to all the guys, and they write their 3 goals on it. And we don't share those goals. We have other goals that we share amongst each other. They don't share those goals with anybody else. They fold them up, and I don't even ask that they write their names on them. I just want to leave, and I can tell by their handwriting now, but I know who they are. But I want them to feel 100% comfortable opening up to the furthest, deepest level. So I don't even have them write their names on them. Like I said, I can tell their handwriting, but I want them to go so deep and make themselves so vulnerable when they write their goals that the types of goals that we get, I mean, are just unbelievable, and they're life transforming goals. And so me as the leader, what I do is I apply all the goals that come in, not on an individual basis, but I bring them up as a whole. Because just because this person has a goal here and maybe he wants to become a better father and spend more time with his family, and he's trying to figure out how he can create the financial freedom for him to be able to do that and the steps he needs to take. But that may not be somebody else's top 3, but it may be their 4th. And so I go over all those goals, and it's crazy because some of the guys you'll see when you bring them up, and it wasn't their goals, and they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, that might have been my top 3. And so I share those goals with everybody as a whole, and I don't say whose they are. And then we talk about as a group how we can help everybody obtain those goals if it applies to them. And it has such a satisfying thing that happens, that takes place when you see that unification of a team, like coming together and rallying for something. It's absolutely amazing. And so I know that's kind of vague as far as answering what those goals are, but honestly, they're so individualized. It would be, like asking you, like, what are your goals aside of having a new car or having a new house or having, $100,000 in your bank account? Now take all that stuff away and say, what are your goals as a person? What do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered as? What type of person do you want to be remembered as? How many people do you want showing up at your funeral? And so it's that type of mentality. And so the goals get so personalized and so different than what you would think that it's not like it has to be revealed by the person. And so what I would say, implore, people that have employees or leaders in companies to say, open up those relationships with those employees or those peers that work for you. Find out what those are. I can't tell you what they are because they're so personalized. And so they're differentiate from one person to the next. And so that's the best part about them, is that it's so genuine and so individualized that it's not something that I can say, oh yeah, here you go, Roland. Like these, it may apply to you, but it may not also. And so these aren't just, random goals that, you can just apply into any situation. They're so personalized that they have to only apply to that group or that person.
I think that's great from a team building perspective, but then also really getting to what you were saying earlier, which is like really care about your employees, which is like, what motivates them as like an individual and as a human, because that puts them in the right mindset so that all the rest kind of falls naturally. I think a lot of people are expecting you to answer with like, oh, well, we try to make sure they're on time every day and we've got a green or a red, and they need to hit $1,000 a day and they have to, have 3 pleased customers or whatever it is. Like people think like, oh, those are the metrics. Those are the goals that they get measured by. But what you just did is you shared your golden nugget, which is like, dive a little deeper, and it's not even necessarily even business related, because, work and life are intertwined, and you're combining this in this exercise, and then sharing it with the rest of the team is great too, because people realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people here that all have the same goals as me, and that helps unify them. And I think that comes back from, as someone who played sports all throughout, my young life, is like, being a part of that team, that camaraderie, we all have similar goals and we're all going to those same missions. And when it has that feeling, it feels like a sport. Even Housecall Pro still feels like a sport. So those are some really good tips. And I feel like it's a not obvious answer that you gave.
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that's what's so noteworthy about your answer, and probably what makes you so successful as a business owner and a boss, is that it wasn't metrics like showing up on time, making sure their uniform or doing X amount of calls. It's like, what are your personal goals and how do we intertwine that into like the fabric of our company together? That is a huge, huge takeaway for me. And I think that's so smart how you just naturally went to say it's their personal goals, not goals for our company. That's huge.
Yeah, and it's so exciting too, because you do become a family. You spend so much time, working with each other and doing all these things to help other people and reflecting on each other and seeing our shortcomings and building on our strengths and weaknesses. And so like when you get so close, on a regular basis, emotionally and connected, I feel like it forces people, even like, because everybody has them, the employees that only just do things for a paycheck, right? But I feel like when you create that culture, it does one or two things. It either forces those people out, or it forces them to change and to evolve into that culture and to buy into it. And that's where things get really exciting, is like where you peel back layers of some really hard shells of people that nobody's been able to break through. I have some employees, and I'm not going to, name their names, and they've been very known in the industry, high producers. They didn't make it. They bounced around here. And the reason why, and as I sit and have conversations with these guys, and they tell me, and it's like, I love it here. And it's not like, oh, Jordan, you're this amazing guy. Oh gosh, we praise you. No, they love it here because they can feel that not only I care, but that their teammates care about them. And when you have that fight as a group versus when you feel like you're fighting against the group, or people are trying to, bosses trying to find ways to cut your pay and put more in the bottom line or do things like that, versus imploring people to provide higher levels of customer service, to communicate better, to care more for the customers when they go there, because it shows through, to care more about helping their teammates and reaching out to their teammates, especially when you see them down. It's just like a customer. When a customer writes a bad review, you deal with it right away. Same thing with a teammate. When I have a teammate and they come into my meetings, if they're not like happy and exciting, I may not call them out in front of everybody else. I may pull them aside once everybody leaves, but I'll say, hey, what's going on, buddy? I can tell something's on your mind. Something's bothering you. I want to address it, move through it, help them grow through it. I may learn. I'm probably going to learn something too. And we're going to work through something together. And that creates that type of culture, as we spoke earlier about the genuine care. And that translates automatically, I'm telling you, and I implore everybody who owns businesses and there's leaders out there to do this for people, everybody. And because it translates directly to everything else. It is a total true valuation of how strong you are at building genuine, real relationships, not disingenuine monetary gain relationships, genuine, real relationships. Genuine, real relationships where customers continue to spend money with you because you are true and you are real, and because and the value and the charge of what you charge it doesn't matter anymore. And you don't care about it anymore. It's just normalization between each other, because that's just what is real. That is the new perception that you've created. That is the new reality. And so it's awesome when it happens amongst everybody, you know, and you can see it forecast. And that, and Roland will be able to really probably expand upon this. That's how you truly grow. Because the best way to grow is to get people just like you, an awesome employee doing amazing things for Roland, and then you go and recruit other great employees out there and great people that want to join the team because you're speaking so highly about what is going on inside of your organization.
Exactly.
And so that's the fastest way to be able to grow your company and to be able to go out and to be able to touch more customers and be their heroes and help them out in times of need.
Yeah, I feel like obviously people want to work with other good people and people that are equally as motivated and as fast and care as much as them, because that brings everyone closer together. And you're right, the ones that don't feel that way or are there just to make a buck, they end up either self-selecting out, or they're like, this is more fun than I thought it is. All right, I'm not even thinking about the money. I just want to come here because it's fun to go to work, you know? Yeah. Let's talk, let's pivot a little bit into just Housecall Pro for a second.
Yeah.
The main thing is, you know, there's a lot of different software out there. What made you choose that Housecall Pro? You could pick anything out of the litter. Like why us? Why Housecall Pro? Kind of what drew you to us?
Awesome question. It's exactly along the same lines of everything we've talked about. I am the type of guy, and I tell everybody who I do business with, not customers, but people that I give my money to continue to run my business, relationships that build and grow and fester as my business continues to grow and as their business continues to grow. That's what I always start off relationships that I do business with people. And I say, listen, as you help me and I help you, I want you to grow with me. I've started with companies that I trusted in just because of their character and the type of people they were, where I knew they probably couldn't even handle the workload I was going to give them. But they were going to take it on with a fierce competitive nature. And I watched some of those companies grow out of nowhere and really do some amazing things, from basically being 1-2-man shows. And, you know, I mean, even from my accountant was 2 people. Okay. And because of our relationship and the things that we've gotten an opportunity to work together on, he's now making acquisitions. His company has now grown because of information we share, because of the dialogue that we have, the conversations, the motivation off of each other, feeding off of each other, and him going, gosh, you know what? I thought I was checked out at 55 trying to coast to retirement. Now I'm like, you revitalized and re-energized me to go out and say, I can do way bigger things. Like, what am I doing? What am I coasting for? I'm here for a purpose. Let's build this. And his company is literally just, you know, propelled and he's helped me, you know, with a lot of different things that I didn't have understandings with in business as well on the financial side. So it's so amazing to see those things. And that's exactly what Housecall is to me in my relationship with you and everybody that I've had opportunity to work with at your organization. And it's that synergy. That's the key word, the synergy between each other. And again, I won't state names or companies, but we probably all know them. You know, the conversations that happen where they're translucent and you see right through to the point of what their optimized goal is, which is you obtain your cash flow versus providing value, providing you know, the necessary things that are going to allow your business to grow and thrive at the highest levels. And also constantly making adjustments and being vulnerable enough to say so, and not, you know, be chest pounding and say that, you know, we can't take anything on that you tell us because we got it all figured out type mentality. And so I think that Housecall Pro is the, you know, it's things in life that when you're successful, it's easy for naysayers or haters to always just point out the negatives, right? And say, well, they don't do this, they don't do that, and they don't do this, and they don't do that, and blah, 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 blah. And I don't look at those things because I already know that it's a natural part of life to grow and make mistakes and then build upon those. And honestly, I see that in Housecall and the leaders in Housecall and the things that you guys do on a regular basis. And even this, the value you guys are putting out for non-monetary gain to help the professionals out there, because they're in the same, we're all in the same boat. We all got to different places at different times. And, you know, some were faster runners than others, and some were smarter than others. And some people did, you know, maybe some things that others might look at like, why did you do that? But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all make mistakes, but that value and that needed assistance that we all need on a regular basis from different perspectives is exactly what Housecall provides. And without the handout mentality, without the, you know, and see the difference that I want to elaborate on with that is it makes the contractor create that same mentality. If you notice, again, going back to some of the other organizations, the people that are speaking about those types of companies, they want to be paid too to sit here like this. You love these industries that we work in. And so we do it for that, so we can provide value and help other people not have to go through those same difficulties we went through to get to the successful points that we're at and continuing to grow through. And we also learn things from those people as well. And so that's why we're here. You know, that's the real purpose. When you reveal back all the layers and everything else and the goals and the revenue and building our company to a point of even an exit strategy, right? The ultimate goal is what did you do in that landscape? You know, how many people did you really help?
Yep.
Not just the numbers, you know.
Totally.
So Jordan, we've learned a lot from you today, and we're just so thankful for all the tips you've given to our pros and all the golden nuggets. One thing we love to do is end it with one actionable tip that all of our pros that are listening today, or whenever they're listening to it, they're going to go implement in their business tomorrow. What is that one thing that they're going to take away from this and go do, if nothing else?
I would say as a overall objective, first and foremost, action. Do everything you possibly can, even if you know it's going to result in mistakes. Honestly, make mistakes intentionally, because it's all about creating reactions of things, right? Because we don't really truly understand things in life. And we started at a very adolescent age, the mistakes that we made, like putting your hand on a hot pan and burning yourself, right? Reactions create results. And the only way to create those results, good or bad, is to create action. You have to go out and make mistakes. You have to do the things that you've said, gosh, I want to do them, but it might be scary, or it might put us in a predicament, or do things. Be calculated about them. Don't just go willy-nilly, but make sure that you go do it though. Don't put it on, I'm gonna put off a week, I'm gonna put off a month. Because listen, that was one thing growing up when I was really young. I did notice that was one of the things that I paid attention to with my own father. He's always, I'll get around to doing that. And that was the one thing that he could have done on a more immediate basis, is action. Going out and actually do things, because we get so busy that we forget about the things that we want to do but we're scared to do, because it's easy to put them to the side. So knock those things out first. Go after the things you're afraid of. Attack those, make adjustments, and grow and learn from them. So action. It's simple. Just go out and push yourself to the limits.
Yeah, I love it. You got to be willing to do the things that other people aren't, to have what other people can never get to. So I feel like a lot of inaction doesn't help you move forward. Brendan Vaughn, that's on a lot of time too, has the saying of the buffalo, which is like run towards the thunder. Don't just like wait for it to like go over you and then start raining and you're like, oh man, this rain cloud, dang it. Yeah. But the buffalo, no, they just run straight to the thunderstorm, because what happens is they just like, whoop, they just go through it and they run straight toward it, and they're always running around. The cows are just sitting there and just eating the grass. So
Be a buffalo, not a cow.
Be a buffalo, not a cow is the story. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Look forward to seeing you next week. For more information, go to housecallpro.com/pro talks.